Welcome to the Sanity and Success Podcast, the show that restructures how we approach life, work, and balance. It is time we erase unrealistic expectations that keep powerhouses like you playing small. I'm your girl, Emily De La Cruz, and together we'll find and preserve your peace while you stack this paper and live on purpose. Let's get it popping. I'm so excited to have you here. You're one of my closest friends, and I really just needed to record our conversations because it's always like, oh, okay, real quick on FaceTime, and then 2 hours later, we're still talking about whatever it is. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So excited. So go ahead and tell all the listeners who are not familiar with who the Ada Rojas is, who you are, what you do, and what you can bring to the podcast.
Yes. So my name is Ada Rojas. Thank you for having me. Congratulations on the podcast. I'm so proud of you. So I am a soul-led serial entrepreneur. I've been in the digital space for 12 years now, which is crazy to think about it, building my Vecina community. My background is in PR and advertising. That's how we bonded. Basically, one of my friends sent me your profile, and I got to go meet this girl. I feel like me and her would just get along. And back then, you could do that. Now, if you did that to somebody, they'd be like, yo, you're mad weird. Why are you doing that? We hit it off and been friends ever since. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. I love that you said that you're a soul-led serial entrepreneur. Because in the world of coaching and business and online entrepreneurship, everybody's looking for answers from other people. Mm-hmm. One thing that I love about you is that you've been able to build now, 2-3 businesses without ever having any type of formal coaching or getting an MBA or all of these things that people think is going to validate them in the entrepreneurial space. So can you talk a little bit about your entrepreneurship journey?
Yeah, so I've been working since I was 14. And I started my blog in 2009 because I'm like, yo, there's mad other white girls blogging, but who's talking to us? So I started my blog, and then I went to school for PR and advertising. So then I started applying everything that I was learning in school to my blog, like how to write a better headline, how to write a pitch, how to communicate better. And brands just started reaching out to me. And I was dumbfounded because you want to pay me $200 to talk about your hair product? I do this for fun. I didn't understand it until one of my professors pulled me aside when I got featured in Latina magazine. And he was like, you need to put this on your resume. This is a big deal what you're doing. I didn't think it was a big deal because I was just doing it for fun. In 2014, I graduated college, went to go work on a cruise ship, was in the middle of Australia for 6 months reading The Alchemist, convincing myself that I could do anything. And I came back from working on the cruise ship with no money, like I'm gonna become an entrepreneur. Isolation will really have you thinking that you could do anything. I know a lot of times, like during the pandemic, people were freaking out, and I'm trying to remind people that my biggest breakthroughs in my life have been when I've been in isolation, because you really have time to get clear on what it is that you want, what is your desire, and really set a plan. So I really psyched myself up to think that I could do this entrepreneurship thing, and I came back and I was like, I'm just gonna work for myself. And I struggled a lot because I did not have a plan, but I figured it out. Because one thing about me is I'm gonna figure it out. I'm very tenacious. I'm very tenacious. So I will figure it out, and I have. So in 2017, I got tired of waiting for brands to come to me to give me their money, and I'm just gonna go take their money instead. So I put together this 6-city natural hair tour. I pitched it to all these brands, got everyone to sponsor. I ended up meeting a woman there that had a natural hair company, pitch her an idea to do a natural hair line. We got into mass retail within the first year, and then last year I made the really hard decision to exit the brand, and I launched another business called Vecina Couture, and that business is also doing great. It's a pleasure to work with you in that business, and to have you. It's just crazy to think that I really read The Alchemist and thought that I could do anything, and here I am.
So take me back. Okay, so I was in college. I didn't really realize that I was popping. Then you randomly ended up on this cruise ship, and I remember you had told me your friend was working on the cruise ship and was like, oh, I think this would be a great opportunity for you. So before you read The Alchemist, what did you think that your life was going to look like? Did you think, oh, I'm going to go be a publicist and I'd work in PR? Did you think, oh, I'm going to be a journalist? What was your dream job before everything changed?
It was either fashion or communications, because I went to school for fashion merchandising and retail marketing for 1.5 years, but it was a private school, and I had a 4-year scholarship to any public school that I wanted to go to in the country, and here I was paying tuition at a private school. So I ended up going to a public school, and I switched my major because I also felt like people that looked like me were not in fashion back then. That was over 12 years ago. And the fashion industry is so cutthroat. Back then it was, if you didn't look like this, you couldn't be here. There was a lot of gatekeeping. Now because of social media, you can be an up and coming designer and just like blow past these bigger brands. Yeah. So I switched my major to PR and advertising because I thought that was going to be more broad. And at the end of the day, I love communications. So I felt if I got a degree in communications and I wanted to go into beauty or I wanted to go into fashion, like I would be able to do anything because the overarching thing might be good.
Okay. Yeah, I totally agree. I remember being in college, I studied fashion too, and I always wanted to be a fashion publicist, and I'm going to work at Teen Vogue, and like, girl, when I saw the salaries, I was like,
people don't realize.
I'm not, at the time, it was an entry level, like PR assistant was making like $32,000 in New York City, and I'm like,
and the workload. Yes, and the workload. I read an article that 3 most stressful job in the country is a publicist. And the first one is a military sergeant. So you're going to have me almost as stressed out as a military sergeant to get paid $30,000 a year? No, absolutely not.
Girl, yeah. So I didn't know what I wanted to do. I always knew, okay, I'm going to work and I'm going to climb the corporate ladder and I'm going to do these things. But once I saw that the fashion industry was just not paying money, I'm like, I need to go somewhere else. So that's how I ended up getting into tech. But it's just so funny how we have these ideas for ourselves, like when we're in college, and then like as you grow and you mature, it all changes.
Yeah.
So for you, as you've been growing and developing and transitioning from one business to another, what have you really learned or been able to grasp about entrepreneurship? What's the thing that you're like, damn, if I only knew this 5 years ago, my life would be so much different?
Yeah, I would say definitely to trust your gut a little bit more, because I've noticed that a lot of times I'm very big into astrology, so I'm an Aries and I'm an initiator. I'm very much action oriented. I don't think about things too long. If I feel like I need to do something, I'm just going to do it. I'll figure it out on the way. A lot of times, even though I didn't know what I was doing, when I look back, I'm like, wow, I knew what I was doing even when I didn't know what I was doing. I'm being so much more trusting of that because, for example, I launched a group coaching program at the beginning of this year. I've never launched a group coaching program before, but I'm just going to do it. Now I have a business coach for said group coaching program, and I'm like, wow, I didn't know what I was doing, but it's not too far off from what I'm learning from my business coach. We know what we're doing even when we don't think that we know what we're doing, but we feel like we need all these qualifications and all this education to be able to stand on this. Oh, well, I know how to do this because I have X, Y, and Z degrees behind it, or I took this course or this training.
Yeah, and I know in your group coaching program, you teach the ladies how to heal through their chakras. So tell me a little bit about that, especially for the listeners who might not be as spiritual, and we definitely have to touch on like the whole spiritual part of things. But walk me through what has been the most eye-opening from having your group coaching program and like teaching chakras and stuff when other people are teaching how to do reels on social media. Yeah.
So when you asked me the question about like, what I wish I would have known then that I knew now, was that if I would have focused all of my time and energy on my healing, on working on my money wounds, on working on my limiting beliefs, my mindset, all of that, I would be so much further along than where I'm at now. Because yes, my businesses were successful. I had a product that was in mass retail, but every single day I woke up in chaos. I woke up feeling, what do I have to attack today? And who wants to live like that? You have all these recognitions, but who truly wants to live in chaos every single day? And I was just kind of over it. So when the pandemic happened, I knew I had a lot of things that I need to work on that I didn't like about myself. But what I would do is I would make myself busier with work. So I would avoid having to work on my shadow self, on the things that I didn't like about myself. So I just kept myself busy with work. I was irresponsible in my business. I didn't do my taxes for 4 years.
Baby, nobody wants to pay that tax bill. Listen.
And for me, it wasn't even like the tax bill. I wasn't making that much money. I'm not about to pay somebody. I'm just not going to do it. You get to a point that you can keep saying, well, I'm from the Bronx and I just didn't know any better. But how long is that going to keep being your excuse? Yes. So when I really started to look at myself in the mirror and to call myself out on my own bullshit and to truly start working on myself, get back into therapy, identify the things that were stopping me from becoming the person that I wanted to be at this point and age in my life, because I've always done it, but I never did it to this level. That's when everything started shifting for me. Every little thing. Now I wake up in the morning, I meditate, I write in my journal, I pull some oracle cards, I have some tea, I'll walk my dog, and then I start my day with my business. I was not doing that a few years ago. That was not my life. So yes, my healing was the crucial thing that unlocked everything.
Yeah, And I know people see you on social media and they're like, Al just has it all together. Like, she's so positive. We call you the purpose police because it's just you're always trying to get somebody to be their best self. And I think even for me, like people wouldn't know, oh, she's depressed or she struggles with anxiety or she goes to therapy every week. And I'd be like counting down on Wednesdays. Like at 11:30, I'd be like, all right, 30 more minutes so I can finally go to therapy and unload my whole week. Because people on social media think like, oh, they just have it all together because they're successful, when that's not necessarily the case. So tell me a little bit about your shadow work. What were some of the things that you started noticing about yourself that you're like, I need to work on this?
Yeah.
Because on social media, everybody's like, she's beautiful, she's successful, she has everything going on. So
it's a lie, guys. It's a lie.
It's all a lie.
It's all
they always trying to find something.
Yes. So, for example, I was really irresponsible when it comes to certain things. As a 28-year-old, I should have just been more responsible. My finances, my taxes. It's like, you're 28. You're not 21 anymore. You're not 25. I was also irresponsible with time. I didn't honor my time, therefore I didn't respect other people's times. You can't be showing up to meetings 15 minutes late. Okay, it was raining, or you should have left your house earlier. Little things like that. And I was checking off all these boxes for myself, but deep down, those little things will bother me, because if I'm not showing up on time to these meetings, that means that I'm not being respectful of your time. And I never wanted anyone to feel that way. So I really need to work on that about myself. Just little things like that, and like my own limiting mindsets with money and scarcity, and always operating out of lack, always operating in chaos, because as someone who grew up in a single family home of 6, chaos was my factory setting, as I like to call it. Once I really started to have more peace in my life, sometimes I would self-sabotage myself to create chaos, because that was my normalcy. Peace was really uncomfortable for me, and I'm still getting used to what peace is like, because I'm like, sometimes I'm waiting for it. That was actually something that I spoke about with my therapist, because if you kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, that's literally a clear sign that you grew up in all this chaos, all this trauma. I don't want to live like this anymore. I want to feel good being in peace. Yes. I don't want peace for 24 hours and then go back to chaos. I want this to be my factory setting.
Yeah. And do you feel like you've been able to accomplish that, or do you still feel like you're on the journey?
No, definitely. I'm not 100% there yet, because like I said, I still get uncomfortable. My life is too calm. There's no drama. Wow. Why? But I'm a lot more comfortable with it now. And I feel also, because I worked so hard to get here, I protect my peace at all costs. Like, you're not fucking with my peace or my energy. I do not tolerate anybody trying to come in here and lower my vibration. I'm not. I'm just no, because then I got to do the singing bowls. I got to get Reiki. I got to see my therapist. I got to write in my journal for a week. I'm not doing all of that just because you want to fuck up my vibes.
I love that you say that, because I did a post on Instagram yesterday when you refuse to set boundaries and refuse to prioritize like your needs over other people. And that's one thing that I'm still struggling with, where I'm like, okay, I really want to do this. Oh, but I don't want to hurt so-and-so's feelings or whatever. But the longer that you try to protect other people's feelings, the less that you are able to serve yourself. So one person actually commented and was like, well, how do you know when you're setting boundaries and prioritizing yourself versus being selfish? Right?
That's really good.
So what's your perspective on that? How do you distinguish, no, this is a boundary, or this is being selfish? I don't think that being selfish is necessarily a bad thing, right? Like somebody one day woke up and put this bad connotation on being selfish, but sometimes you need to be selfish, right? So how do you kind of like make those decisions on, okay, I'm going to set this boundary, I'm going to prioritize myself, or I need to like make this sacrifice and not be selfish? Yeah,
that's such a good question, and it's so funny because it comes up. I do soul coaching sessions, and this comes up in every reading, because of course we have such an issue with this. So the main thing, what I try to tell them is, if someone asks you to do something for a favor or whatever the case is, and your immediate gut reaction is no, you don't want to do it, you don't need to give yourself an explanation as to why you don't want to do it. If the immediate gut reaction is no, and you struggle with saying no to them, it's like, think about it. When you say no to them, they might be disappointed because they don't respect your boundaries. They're going to be mad at you for what, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe a month, and then they get over it. But when you say yes to them and you end up disappointing yourself, all the work that you have to do to get over your own disappointment of disappointing yourself is so much more work than they have to, because they're not the ones that had to say yes to something that they didn't want to say no to. At this point in my life, I just rather disappoint other people before I disappoint myself first, because it takes me so much work to come back to a neutral state after I've disappointed myself. And I'm just not willing to do the extra work just to please you, to say yes to you. I'd rather you be mad at me for a month. You'll get over it. You'll be fine. Go read a book about boundaries so that maybe you could understand better, but I'm just not doing this with you.
Wow, I love that, because that's it, right? It's the work that I have to do to stop beating myself up about the thing. Because we think it's so little. It's like, oh, driving somebody to the airport. But it's like, okay, I had to wake up early. I had to rush to go to the airport. Now I'm late for this meeting. Now my whole thing, your whole entire vibe is off the whole day from this one little favor that you did. When instead of just standing and grinding, it's an inconvenient time. Unfortunately, I can't take you. That's it. It's done. You said it, and we move on. And there's just so many little things and times where we tell ourselves no, when really we should be telling other people no, right? And I love that you said that. Girl, getting back, it's so true. I have to sit in the tub. I gotta go to therapy. I gotta go on a detox. I have to cleanse. I have to pray. I have to light candles. I should not be having to take 7 hours to get back for a split-second decision. Yeah. And I could go on and on for days, because wow, literally that was so good. All right, so let's talk about the girls need to know, okay? Because you're a little undercover witch, high key, low key. So we've seen your journey, and because I know you personally, I know that you have explored a lot of like different religions and stuff like that. So there's just this big, I don't even want to say beef on the internet, because that's not it, but there's just these polarizing views of the internet with COVID and us being in the house and people becoming so much more spiritual, where you have the Catholics and the Christians over here worshiping crystals and pulling tarot cards or whatever. So what's your perspective in terms of like spirituality and all the work that you've been doing to find a practice that works for you, even though it's not like the traditional Eurocentric religions that we as Hispanic Dominican women that you're used to being raised around?
Yeah. So my mom was a religious whore. Every week we were in a different church because she was trying to find herself. So it's like one week we were more. The next week we were Jehovah's Witness, then Catholic. It was crazy. And she ended up finding this one Christian church that I guess she liked the people there, and that's kind of where we stayed at the longest. So I used to go to church camp. I used to be a Sunday school teacher. I was in the Christmas plays at church. I really grew up with the early on, like I already had a connection to my faith and my own spirituality just because of that experience. Now looking back, I'm so grateful that my mom was trying to find herself and she tried all these different things, because it really widened my perspective about what religion looks like, what spirituality looks like, and what your own relationship to source looks like. So the older that I've gotten, I just realized that, wow, yes, there might be some days that I wake up and I crave being in a church setting. I crave going to worship, because the energy, when you think about it, it's all these people coming into one space with the same intention, and it's to honor God. We can talk about the science behind energy, but the energy that you feel in a church when they are in praise and worship, that is real, that is energy, that is intention. That's what it looks like when people come together with the same intention. And it's so beautiful. Some days I want that and I go to church. But for me, I'm just more spiritual over religious, because for me, spirituality is my own connection to source outside of, I don't need to go to a church to access that. If we were made in God's image, then I have God within me. So what can I do to connect with the goddess within me? I don't need to go to a church for that. That's within me at all times. So I'm just obsessed with getting to know myself and going deeper within my own relationship to myself and to source.
Okay. What are some of the resources? There's just so many different things, like, okay, you do crystals and sage and this and that. What are some resources that have helped you figure out your spiritual journey to get to a place where you're like, okay, this is what I believe in, this is what I'm doing, like this is my practice?
Yeah. So the interesting thing is, I was just thinking about this yesterday, and I finally realized that spirituality and all these things are tools. The Bible is a tool for you to really unpack this document and really connect to source. Crystals are a tool to clear your energy and connect to energy. Everything is a tool. So for example, I've been collecting crystals for years. I just think they're beautiful. I felt called towards them. But when I would hear other people talking about how they feel the energy of the crystals, I never experienced that. I never experienced that until last night. I got a selenite wand that has chakras on it because I bought them as a gift for the girls in my program, and I bought myself one. When I picked it up, literally I felt my whole body buzzing, and I was like, oh my God, this whole entire time I've been collecting crystals, I've never been able to connect to crystals in this way, how I hear other people talking about it. So it got me thinking a lot of times like we feel called to do these things and there's not really no connection there. You just feel called to do it. Then one day just magically like that, because you've been doing it and you've made it part of your rituals or practice, you finally connect. You finally understand what is the bigger picture. And I'm like, oh my God, I fully get it. We think we get things, but until you do it daily and you're living it in and out and you're in it, that's when you truly see, oh my God, I understand how to use this as a tool. So for me, like journaling has always been a tool. My little oracle cards, I love them just for the positive messages. Even reading books, there's certain books that like will connect you to yourself and you feel like, wow. So yeah, everything is just a tool. So you gravitate to whatever tools feels good to you and do it enough until you finally hit that point of like, wow, I thought I understood it before. I really didn't. I get it now.
Yeah. And it's a work in progress. As we mature spiritually, so whether you're super Christian, everybody knows like for me, I love the Bible. I'm going to break down a Bible story. I'm going to give y'all scripture. That's just the type of Christian that I am.
Yeah.
But I also believe that there is room for things, manifestation or whatever. But as you go on your journey, what you need to unlock in that specific moment in time, you will unlock. So when you were collecting crystals at 21, you weren't in the space to like receive what you needed from them at that time. The same thing for me. I grew up Catholic my whole life, went to Catholic school my whole entire life, so I was 18. I didn't really learn how to pray till I was 29. People don't realize that it's a never-ending journey to find yourself, to figure out your spirituality, and then to make that part of your day-to-day life. Because even the way that we run like our businesses, like you said, you're a soul-led entrepreneur. It's very much with ease. It's like, what's gonna make me happy? What's gonna bring me joy? Like, I remember when we were in my house in Dallas, I asked you like, oh, what do you want Vecina to look like 5 years from now? And I didn't understand it then because you were like, oh, well, it just really depends like where I am in life and how I feel. And somebody who's very analytical and very numbers, I'm like, what do you mean how you feel? Girl, we need to make this money. Like, we need to be in Target. We need to be here. We need to be there. And you were like, it's going to unfold how it needs to unfold. Like, I'm not going to put a timeline or something on what's meant to happen. It's like in 5 years, like we'll see where we are and how things have evolved, but you're never rushing to just be, oh, well, we're going to make 5 million and do this and do that. A lot of other entrepreneurs, which is so refreshing because I feel like the numbers and these big ass goals put us in this mental jail almost, that then when we don't hit those numbers or when we don't find success fast enough, we start to beat ourselves up. So when you've been having these ups and downs in entrepreneurship, like what have been the things that have gotten you out of those low places of where you've been disappointed in yourself or something hasn't worked out in your favor? What have you done to pull yourself out and just keep going? Because let me tell you, me, a long time ago, I would have been like, I'm packing this ish up and I'm going to go work at Magic City and strip because
I've gone through that several times, and I remember I have this one video, I need to find it because I'm like, I have to record this because this has to be something that I look back on. And I remember I was living in a room that I was renting in New York. I was behind on rent 3 months, and I was at my lowest of lowest, and I'm just like, I was applying for jobs left and right. And because of my degree and my experience, I was like, if I have to go work at McDonald's, that's what I'm gonna do because I do not like being broke. So I remember applying for so many jobs and I would get to the third interview. I applied for the influencer manager at HelloFresh. I applied for a position at Mac Corporate. Got to the third round interviews and I wouldn't get the job. And I was behind on my rent. So I recorded myself because I was so frustrated and I was crying. And there has to be more. There's no way that me, with the experience that I have in my resume, I cannot get a job. Why is it that I'm getting to the third interview and I can't get it? So I'm like, what is it? And literally once I started focusing on myself, then that's when the tour came, then the hair product. But I've gotten here because of all of the things that I realized in my last business, right? Or in my other things that I've done. I don't want to live like that anymore. When you hold on to these expectations and you end up disappointing yourself because you didn't hit your numbers or like, no, that's just, it's not feasible to the person that I want to be. So whenever I do go through the lows is I have my therapist. My therapist, 9-year relationship, okay? I be forgetting that I've been with her for so long because she'd be pulling out the filing cabinet and going back to 2014 and connecting the pattern from there to now. And I'd be like, wow, wow, thank you. So yeah, therapy and then all my Reiki, Epsom salt bath, whatever the hell I need to do to get back to myself. But one thing that I've learned, the biggest thing is to detach yourself from all outcomes. You gotta want the thing, but then you have to let go of it. If it's meant for me, it's gonna happen.
Yes, and I actually was doing this exercise a couple of days ago of practicing detaching because I'm a Capricorn, so there is no detaching for me. It's we are now attached at the hip until this thing happens. One of our mentors gave me an exercise and she was like, practice what it will feel like if you didn't need the thing. Yes, you want to make $1 million. What would it feel like if you didn't need the money? What would it feel like if you didn't need a husband? What would it feel like if you didn't need to have kids? What would your life feel like? What would you do every day if you didn't need the thing that you crave so deeply? And as I started to think about my business and work and my career and all these things that are so important to me, if all of this stuff, literally if all of this shit, if I threw it all away tomorrow, what would I have left? I would be able to go home to the Bronx. I would live at home with my mom or with my grandma, and I would figure it out, and my world wouldn't end. And when I realized that the worst case scenario is actually not that bad, you become so light. You can start to chase things because you don't have that scarcity, that anxiety, that like thirstiness to achieve it. I'm gonna accomplish this because that I know that it's like in the realm of possibility, but I'm not chasing it because it feels impossible. Because what people don't realize is if you're chasing something, it's probably running away.
Yes, and the thing is, a lot of us are powerful and we're able to still manifest even through that. So like that's me. Even with all of that, I'm so tapped in that I'm still able to manifest things. But what happens is whatever I end up manifesting, I manifested it from that energy of chaos. And so it's here, but you end up hating it because this is not how I thought it was going to be. So I'm always like reminding myself that I am, because I used to be the same way. I could have anything I want. If I say I want something, I'm going to make it happen. Now I kind of took a step back and I remind myself all the time, I'm not creating alone. I am co-creating with the universe. I'm going to take action based off what I got in my meditation or whatever download came to me. And then I'm going to wait until the next move. And then I'm going to take a move. Before I wasn't moving like that.
Yes. And it's so hard too because you just kind of start to feel crazy a little bit where I made some decisions and I'll be like, oh yeah, well God told me. And people will be like, what do you mean God told you? Why are you leaving your job? God told me to leave my job. And your boss is looking at you like, I don't care what God said, okay? You're not going nowhere. Or relationships, yeah, you're great, you're amazing, but you know, I need to be alone. Well, I'm stepping into a season that I just need to be in isolation. That's just what I got in prayer. And people are just like, what do you mean you were praying and God told you that you need to be by yourself? Like, it's just so hard to stand in that truth and to accept, like, I got this download. I'm trusting my gut when so many people need data and information and proof. How long are we going to keep trying to prove ourselves to other people?
Yeah, that validation, that seeking validation, and your own downloads that you're getting. You might have had a dream, you might have a prayer answered, and you're still stuck on analysis paralysis. You're like, well, what is someone going to think of me when I tell them that God told me to do this? The conviction that you have to stand 10 toes down in your truth, in your intuition, in your own guidance, it's hard because people will be like, what you mean? That's why surrounding yourself with people is so important, because my hand now, my circle is very much all into this. So when I tell them crazy stuff like that, they don't look at me crazy. It's okay. Yeah, you're right. Even when we launched Vecina Couture, what did we do before we launched? We went into meditation/prayer for 30 minutes before our launch. I was not moving like that with my other business. And what did we do? We went into meditation. We put the energy of abundance in all the robes. We prayed for everyone that was involved in the process of bringing the business to life. I pray that their life be blessed and all these things. And we sold out in a week. Like the ease from that launch, yes, we worked hard physically, but the energetic ease and, oh my God, night and day.
That was such a fun project. Launching Vecina, I remember when we were in Detroit and you were like, yeah, so I have this idea for the robes or whatever. Maybe I'll do it in 3 years or in a couple of years. And no, this is an amazing idea. Do it now. Let's do this and let's do that. And you were just kind of like, yeah, like we can do this. And it was hard as hell. Manufacturing, production, like, people don't realize that creating something from scratch, not just buying something in bulk, actually having a pattern maker. And it's just so much work to bring this item to fruition that we just learned so much in the process. But I do think that we were just so intentional in how we did everything, and we're not stressing ourselves out with this business. We've been stressed out in every other scenario. We're not stressing ourselves out with this business. But it's important to find people, like you said, that are aligned with you so that you can co-create with them too. Everything is a partnership, like your friendships, your relationships, family. It's all a partnership. And if we're all not on the same page, then you're not going to be able to like create your best work. So I'm just so honored, truly,
The honor is
to
mine.
know you and to be able to work with you and to be your friend and just all of our adventures.
Yes.
We have to do a whole part 2 about the time that you made me take a solo trip to Spain, the
Yes.
time that you gave me edibles for the first time. Like, we just need to have story time.
Yes.
Because we don't have time for that on this episode. But if there's anything that you would want to leave Latinas from the Bronx who are listening to this, new entrepreneurs who are like, should I do, they're doing that double dutch of should I launch the business, should I not launch the business, what should I do? What will you tell those people?
I'll tell them 2 things. The first one is that we were built for this. Latinos, Black people, entrepreneurship, the best. No one does entrepreneurship like us. It is literally in our blood. The lady in the corner selling patelitos, the one on apartment 5D that makes cakes. These are all entrepreneurs, but the thing is that society has made people think that entrepreneurship has to look like the guy in Silicon Valley or Steve Jobs. We're undermining all of the work that our neighborhood entrepreneurs, even drug dealers are some of the best entrepreneurs.
Truly.
If you really want to talk about it, we were made for this, number 1. And then number 2 is bet on yourself sooner. I look back on my journey and I wish that I would have bet on myself sooner. Yes, I had the courage to take the action to do things, but there was a part of me that limited belief that I felt that I always needed somebody else to do it. Even though I was more qualified or I had all of the things that I needed to do it on my own, I still felt I needed to partner with someone to bring it to fruition because, well, this person has this more than I do. I just wish I would have believed in myself more to fully bet on myself, and that yes, there's nothing wrong with partnership, but it's different when you're coming into that partnership, you're standing fully in your light, you understand that this person, and you're gonna make magic together, versus like you're dimming your light down because you feel like you need this person. So yes, bet on yourself sooner, and we were made for this.
Yes, I love it. And what's next for you now? What's coming for 2022? What are you working on? Where can the girls find you?
Yes, so with Vecina, I definitely want to create more patterns, give y'all some caftans. There's so much I want to do with Vecina. We need to have a conversation again 5 years from now, because I think in 5 years, the Vecina empire would have already been built. And wow, we really did that. So that's for Vecina. And then as far as my spiritual stuff, I really want to help more entrepreneurs with their spiritual journey. I really want them to create that self-awareness to heal so that they can show up in their business in their full truth and light. And so I'm going to be launching a coaching program in January to help them. And I'm so excited. The last thing I want to say is thank you to you for pushing me all the time, because the people around us are such mirrors for us to always push us to be the best version of ourselves. When I forget things, you're always reminding me. So one of the things that I wanted to share with the people watching is that when we were launching, I remember I was so set on these dates. No, we have to launch by this date. And I remember one time, like, you keep creating these false narratives of like, I need to launch by this date because I told social media that I was gonna launch by this date. And then you get yourself into stress because you're holding yourself accountable for a date that you made up.
Literally.
And when you told me that shit, I was like, she's fucking right. It just shifted my whole perspective. That's when I truly, fully let go. The robes are gonna come when they're gonna come, because one thing I'm not gonna do is keep stressing myself out for a date that I set up for myself. So thank you for always being a mirror and for reflecting back to me all the things that I constantly need to be working on so I can be my highest self.
Girl, I mean, you already know you're the purpose police. We're definitely equally yoked. We definitely know each other from a past life, because there's just no way that like our soul friendship would be so strong and just so vulnerable. So I'm just so thankful for you to be actually my first guest on the podcast.
Look at that.
Very, very appropriate, because he was the one that was like, to launch your podcast, you need a show. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't even know what I'm going to do, what I'm going to say. Nobody cares about what I have to say. And you were like, no, you mad funny, you need to go. So I remember when I had just gone back on social media and I went live. You were like, jump on my live. And then we ended up live for like 2 hours. And everybody was writing back, that was the best live, I love the live, like, thank you for the gems, whatever. And that was really the moment where maybe there is something here. Maybe I do need to find my voice again, because I had just, like you said, I had just been shrinking for so long, probably for like the last 2 years. So I also thank you for just always sharing your space and sharing your platform, and not only uplifting me, but like everybody else. We love you so much. I know we can find you at Ada.
Yes.
allthingsada.com and vecinacouture.com.
Yes,
right?
get your bata. Goodvibesandchill.com if you're into the spiritual stuff and you want to learn about the chakras and how to get your life together.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. I love you.
I love you too.
Wait
Thank
to
you.
do part 2.
Yes, it's coming.
Awesome.
I'm I'm so grateful that you hung out with me today. Make sure you follow us so you don't miss an episode, and do me a huge favor. Please rate and review on Apple Podcasts. I want to hear from you. And if you're ready to start thinking differently, head over to sanityandsuccess.com for a free mindset challenge. I'll see you on the next one.